And this is Weaponized.
The public knows a lot about the role of Lou Elizondo, both in blowing the story wide open and trying to get a bigger program, and in bringing some of the aviators and other witnesses, escorting them to Congress. He and Chris Mellon work on pushing that ball down the field. Jay Stratton is the unsung hero who is working in obscurity, but doing the important stuff. And this was, he didn't have a program. It wasn't called the UAP Task Force. It was after that New York Times story and Congress starts asking questions that he was put in charge of an inquiry, to try to pull all the different strings together, to start pulling information together and cases and getting a structure of an organization that became the UAP Task Force later on.
Jay Stratton started the UAP Task Force, and that was huge for transparency on the subject. I do want to say he's the unsung hero. I got to say, though, Lou gets a lot of grief that it's not valid grief. He's really endured a lot of slings and arrows, as you say. So it's like, being a hero in this ain't what it cracked up to be, maybe. I mean, he is, to me, absolutely a hero to this topic. And I think it's important what he's done. I think Jay coming forward with us on camera, I hope he is treated differently because, man, he's done great things, and now the public's going to learn about them.
Well, you remember at end of 2020, Congress says, we want a program. In fact, we want a report. Here's the legislation. We want that report. You got 6 months to write it. So January, Jay's organization starts working on it. The UAP Task Force, we're going to put this report together.
Yeah.
And it's precisely that moment he gets yanked out of it. And it looked really suspicious. I remember I reported on it at exactly the time when you need him most, when the most experienced guy in the U.S. government on the UFO mystery is taken out of it and given another job. But he actually was supposed to be doing that job all along. This was a temporary duty. So he has taken out the people who he had left there. They didn't have a full-time position. They didn't have any full-time positions, didn't have a budget. Here, put this report together for Congress. And I think they did a remarkable job in 6 months to get it together.
That's right. And he had two people that were putting this report together. And I do agree, it was a phenomenal job. He even talked about why, in the interviews with us, he even talked about why he started in 2004 rather than going back all the way through UFO history. Everybody's like, why did you start in 2004? And he explains that really well, and there's a clip of it.
So you get a lot of, I said on numerous occasions, right? Trust is important. You can't, and I think it was Colin Powell that said you can't surge trust. The minute we're already 70 years behind the power curve for trust, right? Because everybody says the government's lying to us, right? And that the whole Blue Book thing and the whole Roswell thing killed trust, right? Very good reason why not to even go there, right? And this whole discussion, the task force and everything else, we kind of started 2004, right? As Mr. Bray said in the congressional hearings, you got to start somewhere. And in my recommendation when I created is that 2004 start date is important because that was the first case in recent history where I had pilot reporting and data, right? Back to the data. But you take all of that trust, and then you get this bureaucratic machine that is the Department of Defense and the intel community, and then this is an interagency whole of government. So now you're talking about Congress, and you're talking about all the other departments, your DHSs and your transportation, right, with FAA and everybody else. Like, you got to have a singular message, and that's why I wanted the task force to have its own spokesperson, so that we're briefing as much as we can of what we're dealing with. But so you get this whole machine. And no matter how hard you try, email is not the best communication method, right? And hardly anybody picks up the phone these days. So what would happen to me is I would see a response from the DoD spokesperson and I would say, oh my gosh, like, why did we say that, right? And you come back and you try to clean up, but there's no cleaning up at that point. So it was all that circular, and then you had agendas, right? You still had, I think you're probably aware of Lou's previous, you had that happening, and that was also manipulating and driving, because again, DoD is very rank conscious, rank structured organization, right? So if someone senior is telling you to do something, if it's not illegal, they're probably, don't want to risk things and go with it. So I think you had some of that going on. Now I'll tell you, even as the head of the task force, I didn't get into those politics on purpose. In fact, I went back to my old days of the Defense Intelligence Agency when I was saying, we're nationally funded and I need to make an assessment that isn't manipulated by politics, which is actually the law now following 9/11. I stuck to my guns that I am here to, work on behalf of the intel community to give the American people an answer. And on numerous occasions, anytime someone tried to play the rank game, I would just stick to my guns.
Essentially, the idea that he would choose a date where they have a great amount of systems data and move forward from there, it makes total sense. And I think that was a very smart move. I'm sure there is historic data that we can look at now, but I think that was a great starting point. So that was very cool when he did that. And the two people that he tasked with doing that report, again, did a remarkable job.
There's something else he did that you and I have referenced in various reports without attributing it to him in any way, because I couldn't use his name. But there was a briefing presentation that was put together, and it was an accumulation of all these cases that Jay and his colleagues had been investigating. And a lot of them had included video and photos and things of that sort. And he put this together as a briefing presentation for higher ups in the Pentagon, for members of Congress, for defense contractors, and for the intelligence community. And he made the case, hey, this is real. This is a genuine unknown. This is a national security matter. We need to take a look at it. I understand it's a very persuasive piece of information, but some of the images that were in that briefing document, it's classified, but some of the images that came from that are not classified.
Right. I mean, we'll be clear, because we've been clear all along the way, is as journalists, obtaining and releasing unclassified information is absolutely fine. No designation, nothing like that. Sure, something can be contained within something classified. I don't know. What I know for sure is that, and it was confirmed by the Pentagon, that stuff that we ended up releasing, especially regarding the 2019 events on the West Coast, which is something we've covered on an episode at length, one of our last episodes. And I think that the key thing here that I think people should know is that you've got this audio visual presentation that is being shared within multiple intelligence agencies. Why? The reason why appears to be to destigmatize, to acclimate people to the possibility of how do you report this, and to encourage reporting going right back up the chain of command where it should go, which is a smooth and cool process. Problem was they didn't respond a lot to people when they would report it up, and they realized that was an error and that they should give feedback so people know these reports are going somewhere. We're taking them seriously. He also needed to find a way to get beyond NDAs, right? Because sometimes you just overclassify stuff and people have to do an NDA because something was seen or picked up, and they have to go through the process of getting past NDAs, which I don't know he ever got, but I think that's important moving forward for Arrow if it's going to do some great work.